All right. So right now I'm just I've started recording with Starkerz. Today is February the 8th, 2019. It's 1 p.m. Eastern, and the two of us are going to have a brief conversation regarding Steem-engine.com, which is a brand new tool that was built by Yabamat and Harpagon with some major assistance from Asgarth. And what it does is it's a smart contract platform working in a side chain. And the very first smart contract that we've put together is allowing token creation. And then following that, there'll be some other ones. But some of the short-term things that we're looking to add are we're going to add a DEX. It's in the testing phase right now. So every single one of these tokens will be tradable against Steem. We're going to go add some ways to distribute the tokens that make that easier for everybody. Things like ICOs and things like ongoing, if you delegate, then you can get some tokens. And one of the other big projects, we have to go help get a better consensus system than what we have right now, what we launched with. It's great as a starting point, and it's likely going to take until March or April to go get like a real peer-to-peer consensus-based approach, but that's one of the high priorities for Harpagon. And then lastly, we've been working on getting like a legal team in place to go help companies and apps and dApps get registered as a business in the United States, be able to work with the SEC to get a very specific type of registration, which wouldn't force them to do a full securities registration, but they would still be legally allowed to raise up to $5 million in any given year. So those are some of the initial things that we're working on, and Matt here has a whole bunch of questions sort of regarding these things. So today we're going to kind of walk through a little bit of that over the next couple minutes.
Hey man, thanks for having me on, and I appreciate your time and answering these questions. I'm kind of coming at this from a non-tech point of view, as a person who might want to apply this feature to some of my clients. So there's several of my clients who have mentioned already that they want to create tokens, and of course we were kind of waiting around for SMTs before we decided what to do. But it's certainly worth us exploring the option that you guys are providing here, and it sounds very interesting and very exciting. And I'd also like to say, obviously, there's lots of uncertainty as to how it goes forward, and we appreciate that you guys are kind of running with this and building it as you go, and you guys more or less know what you're doing on things, and you're learning as we are as we work out what the implications are here. So this call for me really is just to kind of get my feet under what the implications are and what can be done with these things, and kind of trying to stay on the legal side as far as you're aware. So you just touched on the fact you've got a legal team, or you're trying to bring a legal team on board, which is really, really cool. I just wanted to work out there, what are your definitions in terms of how these coins are supposed to be used from the legal side, in terms of them being classed as a security or a utility token, and how would you advise people who are starting to use these tokens to kind of apply them in their own projects and their own communities to make sure that they stay on the legal side of things? As far as you're aware, I know that you're obviously not a legal advisor and you're seeking that advice, but what are your kind of initial thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's part of the goal of what we want to do by bringing in this legal team, is to go kind of scope that out. There are some things that you can do that are not securities, and there are some things that you can do that are definitely securities. And that makes tokens kind of this funky area, and I'm sure that there's some gray zone that's in here. So part of why we want to have a legal team is to make sure that we can help people with that as much as possible. One of the weird things, like I've listened to some very boring conversations from like heads of SE. Damn it! I wasn't hitting push to talk, so it was recording, and
it's the excitement. It's all the excitement going on.
So
no worries.
Yeah, the shit. What was I saying? So I've listened to some really boring talks by the SEC, and one of the things that they talk about is like you can have things that aren't securities, and you can group them together in ways that make them securities. So, the government is really protective of their business and their ability to like generate securities. You could say that maybe that's for the protection of everybody, although maybe it's so that they can maintain a government-sponsored monopoly over the process. So they often cite an Orange Grove case where, oranges are not securities, but the way that they were packaged and sold very much made them a securitized business. So all of this stuff has this kind of legal gray zone. But, what it often boils down to is, by holding this token, is there people that are promising that it is going to go up in value by their labor if you invest in it. And if the answer to that is yes, then it's almost certainly going to be a security. These simple tokens are very much designed for businesses. And a business that's going to, instead of, say, register their stock on the NASDAQ stock exchange, and they want their stock to be listed on steam-engine.com because it's simpler and the registration's easier or whatever, that's definitely doable. But in order to make it legal, you kind of have to have some of this registration in place. And that's what the legal team would really specialize in. There are, like, the whole monster, like get actually listed on a stock exchange and do a real ICO could cost millions of dollars and take you years to get approval on. But there are actually some fairly simple ways that you can raise decent amounts of money. There's exceptions to some of the SEC rules that are built by the SEC to exactly facilitate this kind of thing, where instead of doing like the full security, if you allow some restrictions around how you raise money, then you can actually fall under some of these restrictions, and your reporting requirements and the legal fees and all of that go way down.
So this is where your 5 million number comes in, is it?
Yeah, exactly. So right now, the maximum amount of money that you can raise, it's a Schedule D 504 exception, and you can raise up to $5 million per year in any given token that you create. If you basically have to give the SEC notice, and then you're going to have to give notice to a lot of the different states of what it is that you're doing. But you don't have to do the full registration process. And as part of this, you have to, depending on the state, you're going to have to hold the token for 6 months to 12 months and not transfer it. But the benefit of doing it this way is that you can raise a lot of money, and you can raise money from unaccredited investors. An accredited investor has $1 million net worth or high levels of income. I don't know all the exact numbers. We'll get the exact numbers put into the website as we progress. But an unaccredited investor would be somebody, this is one of your buddies or friends or somebody who knows you or knows this business or knows crypto. They don't have $1 million, but maybe they have $50,000 that they don't have a net worth of $1 million, but they have some money that they'd be willing to contribute to your business. That's an unaccredited investor. And you can, if you're just buying and selling completely registered stocks, then you don't care if they're accredited or not, because arguably the reporting structure and all of that takes care of the safety of that investor. But once you've given notice under the Section 504 Schedule D registration part or notification part, you can actually raise money from unaccredited investors, and it's something like up to 35 per state. And the states vary, but now, 50 states, you could be raising money from 1,500 people, plus all of the accredited investors that you might be able to find. So...
okay. So regards to the projects who are now starting to register tokens on this on the Steem engine, right? What would you advise them to do? Are you building in a mechanism to stop them from trading it out for a year to make sure they fall into those restrictions, or are they able to go on and trade these tokens and it's at their risk? What's your understanding of that there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that it's been entirely set yet. One of the things
Hmm.
I'm thinking that we really ought to do is have, um, basically two like color coded listings. Like, um, we're probably not the group, although maybe we will end up being the group to say
Hmm.
this is a utility, this is a security, and
Hmm.
then these are the securities that we know are legal. Um,
Hmm.
so that doesn't necessarily mean that the other ones are illegal. It just means that we know that they're legal.
Hmm.
So whether or not, I mean, it's a DEX, so anybody can go pull this information. Anybody can use this. We basically built the protocol that any website can choose to post or not, or how they want to handle it. Um, so our particular website, in order for us to reduce some risks and responsibilities, and we'll likely give some guidance in terms of what we know, but it wouldn't at this point. I'm not certain that I would look at you and say, well, if we don't know, then we won't allow them on the website or something. And even if
Hmm.
we did that, because it's a DEX, somebody else could just build a website and link to the same information and trade anyways, and it wouldn't matter what we said or did, because that's
Hmm.
what decentralized does.
Yeah, understood. I mean, I guess at the moment, technically, you could, because you haven't got a consensus mechanism in there yet, right? It's a centralized sidechain at the moment. Is that correct?
Yeah, the estimate on that is like the end of March, sometime in April. We should have the peer-to-peer consensus layer done. So,
Cool. It's really interesting you're giving deadlines, man. I'll be careful doing that in this community, but appreciate it. That's awesome. So I'll write that down and won't forget it, and I'll hold you to it
yeah,
if
I
it
mean,
doesn't
this
happen.
is this is our first time. Like we haven't, Matt and I haven't done a lot of business with Harpagon before, and Harpagon is a
Mm.
lead dev that's on the Steem Smart Contract platform. So he's quite competent and has clearly been able to build something awesome. I just don't know how quickly he'll be able to get things done. So we took
Yeah, yeah,
we
yeah,
took his estimate, added some extra time to it, and
yeah.
we'll see if the crystal ball works. But um, again, it's not like manufacturing, and I think that's an important thing to keep bringing up. Is that I don't mind giving numbers and giving dates, because I'm not going to like update them once a year. I'm going to try
Mm.
to get out a continuous flow of information on how the progress is.
Mm.
So
Yeah, yeah. So
if this
people will know.
yeah, if it
Yeah,
ends up being a lot harder, then I'll tell you right now, look, this is our first time really
yeah.
setting deadlines. This project just launched. Like, it's basically impossible to tell. This is our best guess. And it's all research, coding is research. You can't it's not like a car manufacturing plant where all right, if I have this much steel and this many workers, I can get this many cars out by Friday.
Yeah, of
There's
course.
so many unknowns.
It's the first time it's been done. It's cutting edge, of course. The thing for me that's interesting, and just to give you a perspective that maybe you haven't considered, maybe you have, is that I think there's a great opportunity with this type of tokenization, be it on the Steem blockchain or other. But I like the fact it's next to, or at least that the information is posted to the Steem blockchain, because there is so much utility for clients on this blockchain, and I think that there's a whole business industry around creating tokens for clients and acting as a consultant for clients to bring them onto the Steem blockchain. And if we can work out the best ways to design and build those tokens, and obviously people like you who are going to be key drivers potentially in this industry,
Yeah,
with
we co-
the framework and foundations that you're building, it's going to be very good for me to be able to feed back to my clients. Hey, yeah, we think we're about here. The guys that are working on it are about 6 months away from X, Y, Z, and it keeps everyone kind of interested and engaged.
yeah. I mean, I'm working out a product roadmap. Again, we're working out some of the kinks, but the first major piece that's going to be brand new is getting this Dex out, and the Dex is like being tested right now. When sometimes when Steemit says soon, and we all laugh and put it in air quotes and put trademark after it, like soon could be anywhere from like 3 months to 6 months to 12 months for them. When I say soon, my goal is to be within the month. And it with with the DEX as like one of the first parts here, it's being tested. I mean, like we're getting good feedback from the users. There are some things that we need to tweak on the face of it, but on the test server, we are able to go place transactions, buy, sell, have buy walls, have sell walls, and put together like an experience similar to something like Bittrex or Kraken or Binance, where you can actually trade these things. So I think that's going to be a major start to give these things instant liquidity. I don't do a lot of like Ethereum trading, but I don't know if on day one it's just automatically added to all the like previously existing DEX. I mean, if every single token that forms here, the second that you hit create, has its own trading mechanism, and that's how it starts, then that is a enormous advantage to Steem. And then and the way that these are built, we still got to work with the exchanges, but presumably once we're able to get one of these exchanges to sort of handle this, then what ends up happening is that any exchange that's already using Steem and already has a Steem wallet can add what we're doing. So we're not quite there yet, but hopefully by March or April, we're going to be able to run around and kind of talk to the various exchanges and get it so that they just turn around and like hit a couple buttons, add a couple lines of code, and now suddenly they can trade all of the smart contract tokens.
I'm working with an exchange, and they want to they're testing their software at the moment. It's a cryptocurrency exchange, quite a small group of guys, but they seem to have a really quite nice package. And they are adding, because we're going to help them onboard a few people onto their exchange. They're going to add Steem and Steam-backed dollars. And it just sprung to mind that maybe I'll put them in touch with you guys, and maybe they can be your first test case to try and get an external exchange to build these mechanisms into their exchange as well.
Yeah, I mean, if they can do not just Steem but SBD, then they already have everything that they need to be able to host one of our tokens too. So we obviously have to go walk them through how to do it, or put together the documentation for how to add them. But if they can trade Steem and they can trade SBD, they can trade every single one of these tokens. And so, imagine this is the world that we're trying to envision here, where I have a new business, I incorporate it with the fiat governments, and I get a quick notification out to the SEC and some of the states. I get my approval. I go and I create a token. The token immediately has liquidity, not just on Steem and Steem Engine, but now every single DEX that has already incorporated Steem, you're suddenly listed on all of them. And that's the world that we're trying to build.
Absolutely. It's a beautiful vision. I love it. So in terms of liquidity, I mean, I appreciate that some of the other exchanges, as they get involved, will be able to provide that liquidity. But initially, what do you see as a risk that obviously there's going to be virtually zero liquidity? It's not a great time to release tokens at the moment because the ICO market's so down, the Bitcoin and crypto markets are so low, and it's very hard to actually get investments, apart from a few exceptional projects that will succeed in releasing their own tokens and creating large trading liquidity pools underneath their tokens. Do you see that there's risks in other tokens creating too many tokens, or tokens that they're probably premature to create and then trading them out and they go to zero with this mechanism? And if you do see that, what do you think you can do about managing that risk and getting some liquidity in there so there's actually an active trading pool in the Steem blockchain?
I mean, that's part of why we're trying to round up as many different groups that are look, there's like 60 dApps here, right? And maybe there's not that many that are already commercially successful, but let's get some of the ones that are commercially successful and making money, or have enough of an audience where they could conceivably do this and pull it off. Get them doing this, build this DEX, I mean, we're day one, so just like all the other small
Absolutely.
dexes, we have to figure out how we're going to attract capital here. But I think the model of we can help you do this legally, and we can help you get listed on all of these exchanges overnight. Obviously, I can't make that promise today, but I think the closer that we get to that, the easier it's going to be for me as a dApp creator to say, well, I could go build this thing on Ethereum and try to get my individual smart contract listed through some of these different exchanges that will list tokens. But
Yeah.
it's certainly a whole lot easier if I just work with Steem and Steem Engine and just automatically have it in the 30. I actually don't even know how many exchanges have Steem in them, but if you could just build it and automatically get it everywhere, then we wouldn't have any liquidity issues anymore. I mean, you would
Yeah.
literally have, not infinite, but as big as the market volumes and as much capital is flowing in Bittrex and Kraken and Binance and Poloniex and all the other exchanges that have Steem. I mean, you would have access to that much capital for your business too.
Yeah,
And
that's certainly the key. It's the rollout to the different exchanges. If you can bring some of the larger exchanges on into this, I mean, it's amazing. But I'm just talking about it initially, and just that there's obviously a little bit of risk there initially because there isn't liquidity yet, and if people start going gung ho with their tokens, it might cause them some more problems than actually they think that you know, people might think they're going to make a load of money on ICOs straight away, and if we don't have the liquidity under those markets, they might crash and burn a lot easier than if we did. But
yeah,
I
I guess
appreciate your
my
take. You're obviously taking that into account, so it's
well, my
cool.
my thought is something like, um, there are likely going to be failures because that's part of the process. Teams are going to explode. Um, Products will fail. This is a natural part of businesses that are starting. But in the end, it's not going to take more than like a handful of businesses that
Mm.
are very successful here to drastically change the perception of Steem, the value of Steem, and how much you can hold, or how
Mm.
much is being held by various businesses. Um, so I, I guess I would just say, yes, that's a risk. It's a real risk. It's a risk no matter what place you go to list. And here, the benefit would be huge for this entire community, with even
Yeah.
just a handful of these being successful.
Yeah, and I think the thing that interests me, and it's nice to hear you speak about it, is that as long as we're aware of that and that we're able to work with each other. So you might put some of your guidance in to try to control how many of these coins actually go listing, and also try to work with the exchanges to get these tokens listed to get more liquidity. And all of a sudden, you're minimizing your risk because you're focusing on those best thing show product companies and communities that have got tokens that are turning a profit already. So there is a natural demand for their token, or at least a very near future perceived demand for that token. And so it sort of stabilizes the speculation. I guess the only risk really is that there's a couple of projects that go a bit crazy and list when they shouldn't really, and that slips through the net. And then those coins go to zero, and like you say, there will be failures, but it'd be nice to try and sort of put a safety net in place there, which it sounds like you guys are going to be able to do, and
But
that
I
should
mean,
be.
I don't know what you would want us to do. That it's up to businesses to make their own smart financial decisions, and up to investors to make smart choices. I mean, it's a decentralized exchange that's meant to facilitate trading between voluntary parties. Our
Yeah, yeah,
our willingness to sit in as a nanny and be like, well, this one's good and that one's bad. I mean, we might step in to be like, this one is clearly illegal and this one
illegal.
is not. Uh, but
Yeah,
but we're it's I mean, who knows? Maybe we do get a rating agency and we start saying this is our suggested value of how safe an investment this is in terms of comparing against
well,
each other. But
well
short of something like that,
Yeah, no,
what
no,
can we do?
absolutely, absolutely, and I think that it should be a free exchange of free individuals to decide what they're going to invest in, and let people list their own tokens as they decide to list them. What I'm saying, I guess, is there is a gap there for someone. Maybe it's a third party. Maybe you guys say, hey, this is nothing to do with us, right? We're just running the code, and maybe some third party can come in and say, we, based on our recommendations, we believe that these projects are rated at whatever. You might have several rating agencies coming out of this, and so that's really cool. I think it's all very exciting, and so kind of that's where I'm going towards.
I
Um,
mean, just keep in
yeah,
mind this thing is decentralized, so we ourselves could be like, wow, these 50 tokens that got created in the first week, only 3 of them are any good, and the other 47 of them are terrible, awful. Don't use them, don't trade them. We won't list them, and then the very next day, because it's a DEX and all the info's on the chain, and anybody running a node can get this stuff. Somebody else just builds a website and hosts them all. So what we do on our one site, isn't going to determine this entire industry, and we've made sure
absolutely.
that it won't, because we've
Yeah,
decentralized to the best of our ability now. It's going to be more decentralized in the next couple months when the peer-to-peer layer is out and the consensus layer is built. So, but in the meantime, in some ways, anything that we do is meaningless in that regard, because somebody else can just create their own interface to the DEX
hmm
and share something. Then they might even be like, wow, these guys, their restrictions were so minute that they're missing a lot of great businesses. Everything that they
yeah.
said was wrong. These are great. Let me show you these. And you know
Well,
it's open source. It's
this is the beauty of
decentralized.
it. This is the beauty of it because you're going to end up with multiple different interfaces, exchanges, and ratings agencies based on the Steem blockchain, basically catering to Steem projects for investors who want to invest in Steem. So that's fantastic. If you guys are setting up that way, more power to you. Um, Next item, in terms of the coins, the kind of technicalities of the coins, without getting too technical here, I think that's a conversation for another time. But is it possible to what are the properties of these coins from a kind of just general short couple of minute spiel on them?
Well,
Is it
they're a
is it
very
just is it just like an ERC20, or are they going to have different functionalities?
yeah. That's a pretty fair starting point. ERC 20, Tron 20.
Mm-hmm.
This, maybe you think of this as a Steam 20. Um, it's a very simple token. It's like a BitShares token. It doesn't. It is a. You can create them. You can set the maximum number of them. You can issue them, and you can transfer them either for free or for sale. Um, that's a pretty limited scope of activities that you can do with these things. But think of like your stock. How much utility do you have with your IBM token or your IBM share?
Absolutely,
Like, it's not. It sits in an account. It doesn't do much. You trade it, whatever. Um,
absolutely.
so these are kind of boring in that regard. We will be adding more complicated smart contracts as we go, and that's sort of scheduled following some of the consensus layers that we're working on, or maybe that's done in tandem. I don't quite know, but the goal um, the goal initially is just get some really simple tokens out there, and then following that, let's get some more complicated ones, because all of this is about get your minimal viable product functioning, and maybe even your minimal desirable product functioning, and then iterate on top of that. And
Yeah,
that's what we're in the process
for
of.
me, in terms of talking to clients, just having a straight ERC20 style token is a great starting point because people get that. There's a lot less to explain about it, and so yeah, great. And if you guys are going to add more to it as time goes on, is that going to be something where other people can add different smart contracts to the code as well, or is it going to be only
Yeah,
you guys
we're
that can do it?
we're careful about other people's smart contract code now. So for the moment, we are centralizing that. I don't know if that is a
Mm-hmm.
permanent standpoint of what we're going to do, but we need more experience with it before we just open the floodgates on it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so
Absolutely.
we can do custom smart contracts. We will be doing custom smart contracts, and some of those that our custom might get opened up as sort of default contracts that are available to other people. But in the meantime, we're not just going to let any developer that wants to come and throw up a smart contract. We're not there yet.
Yeah. And is this something you see eventually merging into the Steem blockchain code, or it's something that will stay as a side chain?
Well, they're going to do SMTs, and SMTs have a very it's a very specific scope that they're going after. You basically get to make your own Steem token without having to leave the community. So you can more or less create a fork of Steem, but not having to fork off of Steem. And so with that, you have certain tools at your disposal. You can transfer the tokens, upvote with them. You can have an inflation. You might be able to do some voting with them. There are some neat tools that are going to come out of this, and specifically for SMTs. But SMTs aren't the only smart contract that somebody might want to make. So even after SMTs come out, we still think that there's going to be quite a number of people that are looking for something that isn't the exact replica of a Steem token with a different name, but still on the chain.
Yes, it's absolutely true. There's already loads of examples I can think of. When I'm talking to clients and trying to sell the Steem blockchain to people and trying to sell the fact there's going to be SMTs, sometimes it becomes apparent very quickly that actually they don't need specifically an SMT. They might just need just a non-fungible token, right? Just a basic thing, or they might need some other feature. I think one of the most impressive features of these tokens is the ability to delegate, and so that if you can do if that's going to be built into the SMTs, that's going to be a great feature. But yeah, there's all sorts of different types of tokens that are required, and it's not always just that the answer is going to be an SMT, and obviously the ability for the blockchain to produce tokens such as the ones that you're producing here, as well as on top of SMTs that might come a bit later. It's all positive news. It's all positive utility for potential applications. So I really like that. That's great. To do with the SMTs, would you see them being able to list on your exchanges? I don't know I can't think of the technicalities off the top of my head here at the moment, but is that something that would work when the SMTs come out? You'd be able to amalgamate them into your exchange as well?
I mean,
into the DEX?
that would be the plan and the hope. I mean, there's some work that's been done on SMTs, and I'm betting that we can figure out some smart API calls for all of that to add to a DEX and make it so that they would experience the same benefit that normal Steam Engine tokens would get. So I think that will happen, but my crystal ball is cloudy enough just for what we're doing, let alone for what Steemit's going to do and what Steemit will create, and then how that can merge into our future. But at least on the theoretical level, is that something that we would want to integrate? Yes, and we would work hard to figure out how to do that. And I think Steemit has expressed some interest or some willingness to work with other sites more so these days than previously.
Well, I think the interesting thing here is with the resource issues around the whole blockchain world, really, with the prices being down. Projects such as yours working together with other projects like Steemit Inc. I think everyone potentially can win, or there's a lot of win-win scenarios there to be had. So hopefully something good comes from that. Let me give you a quick example of an immediate application of this that I can see, that I will be talking to a couple of our clients about. Let's say, for example, that you have a large or medium-sized hedge fund, right? And they have a trading strategy in the market that they go. It doesn't have to be the crypto market. It doesn't really matter. What they're trying to do is securitize their method, right, for that particular investment style. So what they would do is they would release one of these non-fungible tokens. They would allow speculators to buy it, and then they would say, okay, every month we're going to buy a certain amount of these tokens with our profits from our hedge fund. And that might be $10,000 worth a month. It might be $30,000 worth a month, whatever it ends up being, whatever they agree. And I guess however they perform that month. And then what they would do is they would take those tokens and burn them. So you're restricting the supply of the token. but you're allowing speculators to also trade in the token and hopefully therefore create an underlying kind of intrinsic value to the token, because you've got a constant demand for that token from the hedge fund, and you're creating a speculative demand for the token based on how well the hedge fund's doing. And of course, if the hedge fund's continuously putting profits in, you should continuously get speculators coming into that token. So you should have a stock type model where it's a value creation, a value capture mechanism where the price continuously goes up over long periods of time.
I mean, that sounds awesome. It also has security written all over it. So, depending on how much
absolutely.
they want, how much money they're going to move, that's going to require some legal footwork with regulatory bodies. But yes, that would be the caveat for, like, just could anybody do that? Yes, but you have to figure out the legal side. A hedge fund should be able to figure out the legal side. And likely not even need us, and just be able to do that.
Yeah, that's class. And I'm looking. What I'm looking to do is maybe who knows what's going to happen in the future? Like you say, crystal ball's cloudy and everything. But what I would like to see is maybe our client working with you guys to try this out, to do a trial run and sort of go, okay, what do we learn from the legal side of this? How can we set it up? How difficult is it to do? What services can be provided from both sides to make it happen? And then on top of that, so the other benefit to this is, yes, it's definitely, 99% sure it's a security type token, and we'd have to do the work behind that. But the interesting thing here is that if you want to go and get involved in a hedge fund, normally you might have to put $1 million into it. You might have to put $100,000 into it, whatever that kind of threshold is. Whereas this would allow people to buy $3 worth of the hedge fund. Right, it would allow the hedge funds to open their gates up to all sorts of people all over the world, as long as that falls within the regulatory requirements. So it's a very interesting thing to me, and I think it's a whole new industry in investing, and allowing people with small accounts to hold effectively the equivalent of hedge fund stocks or of CFDs of hedge funds, contracts for difference of hedge funds, essentially, which is what these will become. And so, I think it's very, very interesting and very exciting, and I think there's a whole industry there. And so that the reason that I wanted to talk to you was to kind of get your feelings on what you thought about that type of model and any complications, which I think you've given. And just to let you know, we're here, we're interested, and we hopefully we'll be working with you a little bit more in the future on these types of projects.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing about this kind of stuff is just something as simple as, like, I would like to go take a credit card and purchase Steem with a credit card. The technical side of that is very, very easy. You don't have to do much work at all for that. To get the license to become a money transmitter takes 2 years and multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Absolutely.
The same thing applies here. What they're looking to do technically is not that hard. And honestly, the sort of smart contract tokens or Steem 20s or whatever we're going to call these things, from what you're describing, you can burn them, you can buy them back, you can issue them. None of that sounds all that challenging. From the technical side, where that sounds like you're going to have some challenges is making a new security, and they got to figure out, are there, we've identified one sort of common exemption from full securitization that you might need, but there are others. And you could even, you might be able to, one of the funny things about this is that, if you can if it's a product rather than a security, it can be exempt. And so finding what's the difference between a product and a security, like that starts getting interesting. And sometimes you might just need legal opinions to go back up what you're doing, to say, hey, here's the law, this is how we think it fits within the law, and then you go from there. Sometimes you need clarity from a regulatory body, but
it's like it's one of those is water wet questions, isn't it?
So yeah, it's just all you have to do. The technical side is easy.
Yeah,
The legal side is a giant pain in the butt,
yeah,
and we'll have I think we have an extremely talented attorney that we're working with, who I think is gonna. I'm still working out the contract details. I think by the end of next week, I should be able to report. Here's what we can offer. Here are the prices for this, and
yeah.
then we can start also working on, just like everything else. We can say, here's the initial. Oh, you want to incorporate? Oh, you're a foreigner who wants to incorporate. Oh, you want to incorporate in a foreign jurisdiction. All right, now you're looking for some of this SEC notification and Schedule D 504 process so that you can get in there and raise your 5 million. Here are your restrictions, and like we'll start there, but then we're going to figure out what else are our customers or our clients looking for. How else can we support them technically, legally, and then kind of like the software model. Here's what we're starting with. Here's what we'll evolve to.
Yeah, see that stuff sounds great, and it comes back to when I was talking a bit earlier about ratings agencies and things like that. If you guys are able to provide some sort of guidance as to how people should list these tokens to stay on the legal side, I think it's a massive edge, and that's very exciting to me. It makes obviously people like me and my clients feel a lot more secure because we kind of feel that there's a guidance mechanism there that makes sure we don't go and get ourselves arrested. Um, and Yeah, so that's basically most of the questions. I've got one last question for you. I see that there's a lot of tokens being created on Steam Engine at the moment, which is great. Congratulations to that, and great news. We're actually creating a couple of tokens as well to have a bit of a play around and make sure that we get to understand what the experience is like, which I think is what most of the people are doing. But what, in terms of the next 6 months to 8 months or so, I guess, what do you see happening to these tokens, and what is your advice to these projects who are creating their own tokens now? What's your advice to them to make sure that they don't get themselves arrested in the future with these tokens? And what is your advice to make sure that they run a successful fundraising with these tokens if that's what they're going to use them for, or for them to run a successful utility with these tokens if that's what they're going to use them for? What would you say you'd want to say to these projects, and projects like mine, Oracle D, who we don't necessarily have the legal expertise to understand this fully, but we want to make the most out of this experience and kind of benefit from it in the best way. What would you say you would to these projects?
Well, that's part of the commercial venture that we're looking to establish, is that the laws around this are oftentimes, some of it is hard and set, and some of it is gray, and some of the use cases get pretty bizarre in crypto. So there's, I've worked with attorneys and lawyers for a while for different things, and the most common answer you'll get when you ask them a simple question is, well, it depends. And so, we want to provide legal service as part of what we're doing to go suggest to people. So we'll, in the not too distant future, we're going to go hopefully sign this deal with the law office that we're working with, and that Steam Monsters itself worked with. So this started by eating our own dog food, if you know that expression. But
Yeah, I don't actually. I've not heard it before.
it's oftentimes for like, test your own product before you put it out there. So here
Okay.
it's, we're not just signing up some random group to do this. It's somebody that we ourselves worked with, had a
Yeah.
pretty phenomenal
It's trial.
experience with, and we want to go make their services like available to others. And they don't necessarily have like a sales team, sales division. So in some ways, will like the Steam Monsters team will become the product and sales team with legal expertise from this other firm. And so, together we'll be able to go answer those questions. And, for people not experienced with legal stuff, they're going to say, wow, that sounds really expensive. But, so for example, to do incorporation and to get the notices out, I'm expecting that to cost between $10,000 and $20,000. and that's not chump change. That's money. That's like mortgage payments for a year kind of money. That's not simple stuff. Um, but if like the prize or the thing that you would make that bet worthwhile is that there's up to $5 million that you can raise every year. So if your team is any good and your product's any good, then that's actually a relatively small amount of money to sort of stake to get this thing off the ground so that you can raise substantial amounts of money. And then there are other parts to this, like, hey, am I just a utility token? We'll try to get some basic legal FAQs up there that people can follow. But if you're going to get really into the weeds and really specific and have a lot of questions, then you're probably going to have to retain an attorney to go ensure that you are complying with the fiat legal jurisdictions of the world and what they claim that they run.
Very interesting. Okay, well, I think we'll call it quits there. It's about 50 minutes we're on now, so I really appreciate your time, and I think the questions you've answered very clearly, and you've certainly clarified the way for me. So we'll go away and play with these tokens a little bit and see what we come up with, and I guess we'll jump on your Discord as well, and kind of answer any further questions, ask any further questions there.
Yeah, and I'll be available. I basically live in Discord, so if you need my help, I can help. If we need devs to get involved, Harpagon is interested in doing custom smart contracts for people. If we need to customize the web space, we can work with Matt on that. If you need custom legal advice, we'll have this firm that we work with that we can sort of coordinate these activities for all these different moving pieces.
Well, here's something that interests me. So I'll keep talking about this Steem Business Alliance, which we're going to bring out in the next few days. We're going to do our first blog. And the idea behind that is to bring new customers into the Steem blockchain and give them a place to go where they can say, they can come in and they can say, okay, I've got the people around me that know Steem well enough to tell me where to go and what to do, right? So this type of service that you're talking about here is certainly something that would tie into that. And how can those projects, after they've established themselves and grown a bit, start thinking about releasing a token and having the right consultancy service in place? And of course, this all costs money. And one of the things that I'm excited about is, particularly for the devs on Steem, who are the people that make these kind of technical sides of these projects happen. If there's a client that wants to come in and maybe they have an established business that would sit quite nicely on the in the Steem community, we would bring them in and advise and say, yes, okay, X, Y, Z. In order to build this, there are 5 devs that have said that they're happy to work with different people, but they're currently busy. However, they will respond to the best rates that people are willing to pay. So all of a sudden, you get this scenario where you have we create a demand for developers, and then the developers can charge the market rates that they need to charge to attract them to the jobs. And then if the clients are willing to pay those jobs, you match it, and you get project development on the Steem blockchain, essentially for Steem blockchain developers by the community, and funded by clients that are willing to pay to get access to the facilities and the opportunities that the Steem community and blockchain offer. So I think that's certainly something for the future as well, and I look forward to working out how we can work the things that you're talking about here into the things that we're talking about, and have some sort of potentially as seamless as possible partnership or collaboration there going on. I think that's very interesting as well.
Well, I was working with a team of Venezuelan designers, and it fizzled some. But we had a site that's called Crypto Jobs, that's basically like a Fiverr or Freelancer for crypto spaces, but specifically built for Steem. So the site looks good, but it's not all wired up to the blockchain. So we would need a developer to sort of take a look at that. And it hasn't been our top priority, but helping folks, businesses in particular that have job needs, and having a place where people can list the services that they can offer. that to me is kind of a no-brainer. The two things that I think that you can very easily do for commerce on the web are digital products and labor. Um, and so, crypto jobs is it's something that I've wanted, in particular for the Venezuelan community, because they have a lot of skilled labor, but very closed markets. And so, if they could use crypto to open up their markets, and maybe devs start at like $2 or $3 an hour, but you're going to run out of $2 to $3 per hour devs very shortly, and hopefully it keeps pumping up their prices so that we can actually get some money into the Venezuelan people. Maybe not their whole economy and oligarchy, but get it into the hands of people through cryptocurrencies, and hopefully help people live and survive. Not just.
I mean, this is the beauty of the Steem blockchain. We're doing this all over the place in all sorts of projects in terms of supporting and pumping money into nations that are in the developing state and don't maybe have the opportunities. Well, they certainly do on the Steem blockchain, and we're certainly setting up the projects to help them come choose what they're interested in and get rewarded for doing valuable actions. If one of those happens to be developing, then great. There's another side to this as well. I see that I think that the Steem community is going to have to put itself into a position to tender for work, be that against other blockchains, or be that to allow other clients to tender for the resources of development teams or individual developers. So as opposed to just having a market with a rate, you might have to start putting teams together and bidding projects and all sorts of things. And I think that's something that needs to be looked at in the future. It's a couple of years away yet, probably, until we get that kind of sophisticated. But those things are going to start to come, and it's all, to me, all this stuff is very exciting. And it unfortunately, I guess it makes me even more hooked into Steem than I was an hour ago before I spoke to you. Which I think I'll end up spending as much time as you do on Discord. Was it you yesterday was posting like level 65 rank or something on the Discord server?
Yeah, I'm in the 50s, I think. 50s, some of the mods are in the 80s, and they're exponential, so they are much higher up in terms of their activity than I am. But yeah, I spend a lot of time doing this stuff.
It's probably there's probably something you said there for a more accurate Steem blockchain reputation score based on your Discord score than your Steem blockchain.
That's hilarious. Yeah, what your Discord level is more representative.
We should build that into the blockchain in some way. Have your Discord rating in there. Very good. All right then, Aguirre, I appreciate your time. Thanks very much, and we'll catch you in the near future when we speak next.
Sounds
all right,
good.
my man.
Thanks,
good luck with it.
Have a great day.
Keep up the good work. Bye. Yeah, you too. Cheers, man. Bye.